Morning sunlight spilled over downtown Providence, Rhode Island, bouncing off glass towers and sleek cars. A black Mercedes S-Class glided into a red curbed zone marked no parking. Municipal court access only. The driver, Ethan Cole, 43, CEO of Coltech Industries, checked the sign, smirked and shut off the engine. Court access, huh? Perfect for royalty. He straightened his tie, grabbed his latte, and strutted toward Coltech Tower, his own name gleaming on the building like a crown. Inside, conversations died the moment he entered. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," his assistant Lucy said, nearly dropping her tablet. "Schedule," he demanded without slowing. "Board call at 9, investor briefing at 10. Cancel if they're late. My time's more valuable." "Yes, sir." Outside, Officer Sarah Morales parked her city car beside the Mercedes. 10 years on the job had taught her one thing. Expensive cars broke rules more often than cheap ones. She wrote the ticket neatly, slid it beneath the wiper, and snapped a photo for records. 2 hours later, Ethan reappeared, sunglasses on, phone at his ear. The yellow slip fluttered like an insult. "What the hell is this?" Sarah looked up. "Good morning, sir. You're parked in a restricted zone." He laughed. "Do you know who I am?" "I don't," she said evenly, "and it doesn't matter." "It does," he replied. "I own that tower. I pay more in taxes than your whole department makes in a year. Then paying a $50 ticket shouldn't be a problem." Pedestrians slowed. Cameras from passing phones angled toward them. Ethan's smile thinned. "You're writing me a ticket? I could end your job with one call." "Threatening an officer is another offense," she said calmly. His jaw flexed. He tore the ticket in half, dropped it at her feet, and hissed, "Problem solved." Sarah met his eyes. "No, Mr. Cole, that's tampering with a citation." She turned and left. Ethan stood seething, realizing too late that half the street had recorded everything. By evening, the video was everywhere. Title, "Arrogant CEO Threatens Officer Over Parking Ticket." It exploded, 2 million views overnight. Memes, reactions, outrage. In his penthouse, Ethan scrolled through comments until his jaw hurt. "Money can't buy manners. Officer Morales the queen." He slammed the phone down. "Idiots." Next morning, Lucy entered his office pale. "Sir, the city court issued a summons. You're to appear before Judge Caprio." Ethan laughed. "The TV judge? He forgives everyone." "I'll be out in 10 minutes. Lucy hesitated. "Sir, this isn't TV." 2 days later, Providence Municipal Court overflowed with reporters. Ethan arrived in a charcoal Armani suit, expression carved from stone. Judge Caprio glanced up from the docket. "Mr. Ethan Cole, parking in a restricted zone and tampering with a citation."
"How do you plead?"
Ethan leaned casually. "Not guilty. The whole thing's exaggerated." Caprio's tone stayed gentle. "Officer Morales is here. Let's hear her side." Sarah stepped forward. "He parked illegally, threatened me, tore the ticket, and drove off." Ethan chuckled. "I was frustrated. People overreact." Caprio looked at him. "Do you often destroy city documents when frustrated?" Ethan's confidence flickered. "It's not that serious." "Perhaps not to you," the judge said, "but to her and the law it is." The room quieted. Ethan tried to smile. "Look, Judge, I'll pay whatever fine. Let's be done." Caprio's gaze softened. "Mr. Cole, the law isn't a bill to settle. It's a lesson to learn." Silence. Cameras clicked. "You remind me of men who mistake wealth for worth," Caprio continued. "Respect is proven by how we treat those with less power than we have." Ethan shifted. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I don't owe anyone anything." Caprio sighed, almost kindly. "That's what troubles me most." He wrote something, then spoke clearly. "You're fined $2,000, plus 1 week of community service at the Providence Youth Rehabilitation Center. Tell those young men about success and consequences." Ethan's head snapped up. "Community service for a parking ticket?" "For arrogance," Caprio replied, tapping the gavel. "Next case." Outside, microphones swarmed. "Mr. Cole, any comment? Do you regret what you said to the officer?" He forced a smirk. "No comment." The Mercedes door slammed, muting the chaos. For once, Ethan Cole, master of noise, sat inside perfect silence, staring at the courthouse steps where his ego had tripped him. He told himself it was just bad PR, but deep down, for the first time, doubt whispered louder than pride. 3 days later, Ethan Cole stood outside the Providence Youth Rehabilitation Center, a beige brick building that looked more like a school than a correctional facility. He wore designer sneakers and a navy jacket that screamed money, not humility. A social worker, Marcus Hill, greeted him with a polite smile. "Mr. Cole, right? Judge Caprio called ahead, said you'll be spending a week here." "Spending?" Ethan repeated dryly. "I'm not a criminal, I just got a parking ticket." Marcus shrugged. "That's one way to see it. Another way is, you got a chance to do something good with it." Ethan sighed. "Let's just get this over with." Marcus led him inside. Teenagers in gray sweatshirts milled around the common room, some playing chess, others staring at the wall. A few glanced up at Ethan, whispering. "Who's the rich guy?" one murmured. Ethan caught it. "I'm not here to make friends." Marcus gestured to a group. "You'll mentor these 5. They're between 16 and 18. Talk to them about choices, ambition, life. Whatever you think might help." "Ambition?" Ethan scoffed. "That I can do. I built a company from scratch. They should take notes." Marcus gave a knowing look. "They might teach you a few things too, Mr. Cole." Ethan didn't respond. The first session was awkward. He stood before the 5 boys like a teacher who didn't want to be there. "All right," he said, crossing his arms. "I'm Ethan Cole, CEO of Coltech Industries. You've probably seen my company online." Silence. One of the boys, Jamal, raised a brow. "Ain't you the guy who yelled at that cop?" "My grandma showed me that video." The others laughed. Ethan froze. "That was taken out of context." Jamal smirked. "Looked like you were mad someone told you no." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You think you know me?" Jamal leaned back. "Don't need to. You act like every boss I ever had. Always talking, never listening." The words stung more than he expected. He was about to retort, but Marcus's voice cut in from the doorway. "Lunch break." The teens shuffled out, leaving Ethan standing alone in a room that felt heavier than any boardroom. That night at home, Ethan sat by his glass dining table overlooking the city lights. His phone buzzed constantly, texts from PR managers, investors and his assistant. "We're losing a contract with AmeriCorps due to the bad press. Board wants an emergency meeting." The video hit 10 million views. He muted everything, staring at his reflection in the window. For the first time, his own face looked unfamiliar, angry, tired, hollow. He whispered to himself, "How did I end up here?" The next day, Ethan returned to the center. Still wearing his watch, still carrying his pride. Marcus met him at the gate. "Rough night?" Ethan forced a smile. "Just business. Maybe stop running your business like your life depends on it," Marcus said quietly. "Because right now it's costing you both." Ethan didn't reply. Inside, he tried again with the boys. This time, he asked questions instead of giving speeches. "So, what do you guys want to do after this?" Luis, a skinny 17-year-old, shrugged. "Work in auto repair. I'm good with engines." Tyrell, arms crossed, said, "No idea. Ain't nobody gonna hire me with my record." Ethan leaned forward. "You'd be surprised what a second chance looks like, if you're willing to fight for it." Jamal smirked. "Like you fought for that parking spot?" The room burst into laughter. Even Ethan cracked a reluctant smile. "Touché," he said. "Guess I deserved that." By the 4th day, something had shifted. Ethan started staying longer, listening more. He told them stories of his early failures, how he once lived out of his car after his first startup collapsed, how he was laughed out of meetings. He left out the arrogance, but somehow they saw through it anyway. Tyrell asked, "Why you talk like you got everything but sound like you got nothing?" Ethan blinked. "What do you mean? You got the suit, the car, the company. But every time you talk about yourself, it sounds like you're still trying to prove something." Ethan sat in silence. For a kid barely 18, Tyrell had just summarized 43 years of his life. He didn't know what to say. The last day came too soon. Marcus handed him a clipboard. "Sign here, Mr. Cole. You've completed your hours." Ethan hesitated. "Can I come back sometime?" "Not as punishment." Marcus smiled. "That's up to you." As Ethan left, Jamal called out, "Yo, CO, try not to park in a no parking zone next time." For the first time in weeks, Ethan laughed, genuinely. No promises. Outside, the sky threatened rain. He walked toward his car but stopped halfway. The Mercedes gleamed under a streetlight. The same car that had started everything. He stood there for a long minute, watching the reflection of the courthouse dome in its hood. Something about it felt different now, less like power, more like irony. The following Monday, Ethan sat in Judge Caprio's courtroom again for a follow-up hearing. Cameras lined the back wall, but he didn't notice them. Caprio looked up, surprised. "Mr. Cole, didn't expect to see you again so soon." Ethan nodded. "Just wanted to thank you, Your Honor. The community service. It changed things." Caprio smiled faintly. "Change only sticks when humility stays." Ethan exhaled. "I understand that now." Caprio's voice softened. "You know, I believe everyone deserves a second chance, even those who think they don't need one." Ethan met his gaze. "I hope I can earn mine." The judge nodded. "Then start by giving one." That night, Ethan announced at a press conference that Cole Tech would fund new vocational programs for underprivileged youth in Providence. Reporters expected arrogance, but instead they found a quiet sincerity. Still, the internet wasn't quick to forgive. The memes didn't stop, the stock price dipped, and for the first time, Ethan faced a storm he couldn't buy his way out of. But something in him had changed. He stopped caring about the noise. He started caring about the truth. He looked out at the city skyline that night, remembering the courtroom, the officer, and the kids who'd seen through him better than anyone ever had. He whispered, "Maybe this is the price of learning." But he didn't know. The price was about to rise even higher. The press conference that Ethan hoped would redeem him did the opposite. By evening, headlines across business networks screamed, "Cole Tech CEO's PR stunt after Judge Caprio's ruling. From power suit to public service, is Ethan Cole's humility real?" Investors panicked. The stock dropped 8 points overnight. Inside Cole Tech's glass tower, whispers filled every corner. Lucy, his assistant, entered his office cautiously. "The board wants an emergency meeting, sir." Ethan didn't look up from his laptop. "What for?" "They're concerned about reputation damage." He exhaled sharply. "They should be concerned about their loyalty." Lucy swallowed hard. "They're saying you're bad for business." He looked up then, eyes burning. "Bad for business? I built this empire. They wouldn't exist without me." "I know, sir, but—" "No buts. Schedule the meeting. I'll remind them who they work for." That afternoon, Ethan stood in the glass conference room facing 12 board members, men and women, who'd once applauded his every word. "Let's skip the fake sympathy," he said. "You're scared because a few social media trolls think I'm the villain. But I'm the reason this company exists. The media will move on." Robert Hayes, the CFO, cleared his throat. "It's not just media, Ethan. Our partners are pulling out. Clients are losing trust." "Then replace the clients," Ethan snapped. "Ethan?" said Marianne Lee, head of marketing. "This isn't just bad optics. People see arrogance and now they connect it to our culture. That video—" "Enough!" he shouted, slamming the table. "You all want someone to blame? Fine. Blame the CEO who worked 20 years to make you rich." Silence. Robert sighed. "We're voting to suspend you as CEO until further notice." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You can't suspend the owner." "The shareholders can," Robert said quietly. Ethan froze. "You're making a mistake." Marianne's eyes softened. "Maybe, but it's the only way to save the company." He stared at them, realizing too late that power built on fear never lasts. Hours later, Ethan drove aimlessly through the rain-slicked streets of Providence. The same Mercedes, the same reflection of streetlights sliding across its hood, but he felt like a passenger in his own life. His phone buzzed. Lucy again. "Sir," her voice trembled. "They've appointed Robert as interim CEO." He didn't respond. "There's something else," she added. Cole Tech's lawyers called. "They're reviewing your contract for misconduct." He hung up, gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. The next morning, he arrived at the office only to find his keycard disabled. The security guard, someone who'd once greeted him daily, avoided his eyes. "Sorry, Mr. Cole, orders from upstairs." Ethan forced a smile. "Of course. Orders from the people who owe me everything." He turned away before the guard could see his eyes glisten. He drove to the courthouse instead, unannounced. Judge Caprio was in recess when Ethan approached his chambers. The judge looked up in surprise. "Mr. Cole, you again." Ethan managed a shaky grin. "Looks like I've been demoted by life itself." Caprio motioned to a seat. "Tell me." Ethan sat, rubbing his temples. "They took my company. The same people who praised me for years. It's like everything I built turned against me." Caprio leaned back, hands folded. That's what happens when we build without balance. Success without humility collapses under its own weight. Ethan's voice cracked. I tried to fix it. I changed. I believe you, Caprio said softly. But change doesn't erase consequences. It reveals who we become after them. Ethan looked down. So what now? Now, Caprio said, you start over. Not to prove the world wrong, but to prove yourself right. Ethan nodded slowly, tears threatening. I don't even know who I am without that company. Then it's time you find out. That night, Ethan drove to the waterfront, parked by the docks and sat staring at the black water. His phone buzzed again. It was Marcus, the social worker. Hey, just heard about Coltech. You okay? Ethan chuckled hollowly. Do I sound okay? Marcus paused. You sound human. That's a start. They talked for nearly an hour. Marcus told him how the kids at the center still joked about the CEO who got schooled. They actually liked you, man, Marcus said. You showed up. Ethan smiled faintly. They made me see myself. Good, don't lose that version of you. It's the only one worth keeping. Ethan hung up and looked out over the water again. For the first time, he felt something close to peace, stripped of status, money, noise. He whispered, maybe this is freedom. But the storm clouds gathering over the city said otherwise. Weeks passed. The world moved on, but Ethan didn't. His penthouse grew quieter, emptier. Bills arrived, contracts ended, interviews stopped. He sold the Mercedes first, then the house in Newport, then the watch. Lucy visited one afternoon with a box of files. These are your personal items from the office. They said to give them to you. He took the box silently. I'm sorry, Ethan, she said. I fought for you, but they... He shook his head. Don't apologize. You did more than anyone. She hesitated at the door. You could still rebuild, you know. Start something new. Ethan smiled faintly. I don't know if I have the energy. Lucy's voice softened. Maybe you just need a reason. A week later, Marcus called again. Got a favor to ask. The boys at the center are graduating from the program. They want you there. Ethan hesitated. Me? After everything? Especially after everything, Marcus replied. He agreed. At the graduation, the kids stood proudly in borrowed suits. Ethan sat in the back, unnoticed at first. When Jamal saw him, his face broke into a grin. Yo, the CEO's back. The room erupted in laughter and claps. Ethan laughed too, shaking his head. Guess I can't escape that title. They asked him to speak. For once, he didn't prepare a speech. He spoke from somewhere deeper. I thought power came from control, he said. But it doesn't. It comes from connection, from knowing when to listen, not when to win. The room was silent. He continued, voice breaking slightly. I lost everything that made me look strong. But maybe that's what made me finally become real. Even Marcus blinked back tears. When he finished, the kids stood and applauded, not for the man he'd been, but for the one he was becoming. Afterward, as he left, Sarah Morales, the officer from that first ticket, stood near the exit. He stopped, stunned. Officer Morales. She nodded. I saw your speech. You've come a long way, Mr. Cole. Ethan, he corrected softly. She smiled. Ethan it is. He hesitated. I never apologized properly. I was cruel that day. You did just now, she said. Keep doing what you're doing. It suits you better than arrogance. She extended her hand. He shook it, feeling something like forgiveness. That night back home, Ethan wrote in his journal for the first time in years. Maybe life doesn't punish us to destroy us. Maybe it breaks us to rebuild us differently. He felt lighter, but fate wasn't done testing him. Months later, Ethan had started a small consultancy firm, nothing flashy, just honest work helping small businesses. He'd even begun volunteering weekly at the youth center. Then came the call. Mr. Cole, this is Providence General Hospital, the voice said. It's about Marcus Hill. Ethan's heart dropped. Marcus had been in a car accident on his way to the center. Critical condition. Ethan rushed to the hospital, gripping the steering wheel with trembling hands. When he arrived, Jamal and a few of the boys were already there, sitting in silence. A nurse approached. He's stable, but it's serious. Ethan sat beside Marcus's bed, tears welling. You saved me when I was falling apart, man. You can't go now. Marcus managed a weak smile. Guess it's your turn. To help others. Like you promised. Ethan choked up. I will, I swear. Moments later, the monitor flatlined. Ethan froze, unable to breathe. The sound was worse than any courtroom gavel. Days later at the funeral, Judge Caprio delivered the eulogy. Marcus believed in redemption, the judge said. He believed people could fall and still rise again. He saw that in Ethan Cole. Ethan sat in the front row, eyes red, heart heavy. When the ceremony ended, he approached the judge. I wish I could have thanked him more, Ethan said softly. Caprio placed a hand on his shoulder. Then live in a way that thanks him every day. Ethan nodded, tears slipping down. That evening, Ethan walked alone through downtown Providence. The sun set behind the courthouse dome, casting golden light on the same street where it all began. He stopped at the red curbed spot. The paint was faded now. A new no parking sign stood above it. He smiled through tears. Guess I finally learned where to stop. He placed a small white flower at the base of the sign, Marcus's favorite, and whispered, "Thank you." Then he walked away, not as the CEO he once was, but as a man finally at peace.